back to a new and improved season of Kapow.
Improved, you say?
I certainly do say so. We are back here at Kings Comics with bigger episodes, with more Sonia, more Al, more Ray.
And more comics, cartoons, and collectibles than you can shake a stick at. Although we suggest you don't test the theory, because, no, put that down, you'll have someone's eye out.
Alright, first things first, I think we should dive straight into a batch of comics, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely, but again, not literally, because paper cuts are nasty. We'll be starting off by taking a gander at a few of the collected editions that have crossed our desks recently.
You don't have a desk.
It's a figure of speech.
It's a piece of furniture.
Well, it takes one to know one.
What?
Ray is going to be joining us as usual to check out the new Batman premium format figure from Sideshow, and then I'll be having a chat with one of our old friends, Paul Kajegi, about his comic series Pandeia and his Kickstarter campaign.
Then Ray will be sneaking back in to take a look at the anime Space Dandy.
And we're rounding things out by taking a nostalgic look back at some of the comic series that have been taken from us before their time. The cancelled, the abandoned, and those that just kind of left us hanging.
Yeah, so strap yourself into your viewing chair, grab a bowl of your favourite snack food, and put your phone on silent.
Unless, of course, you're watching this on your phone, because then we'd probably have to do the rest of the episode in sign language or something. Okay.
The Christmas holidays are a time for togetherness, for reconnecting with friends and family.
Yes! Friends and family, that was who those people were that were hanging around while I was reading.
You're not a real social being, are you, Al?
They're called priorities, Sonia. There have been a lot of good collected editions that have come out recently, and they deserve due attention.
Yes, I cannot disagree with you on that one, and I will admit quite a few people went to voicemail while I was reading the first hardcover on our list. The second volume of Blacksad, written by Juan Diaz-Canales, with art by Juanjo Guarnido.
Yeah, having deeply loved the first volume, I was excited to jump into this one. John Blacksad, the toughest feline private eye in the business, finds himself in New Orleans, caught up in a case drenched with booze, drugs, jazz, and monkey voodoo.
For my money, this volume is just as good as the first one, although significantly shorter. But there's a lovely selection of production notes and sketchbook images that fill the hardcover out nicely. And Guarnido's artwork is as beautiful as ever, really nailing the feeling of the Big Easy in the 1950s. You can almost smell the gumbo bubbling. This is an unqualified buy.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be a buy from me as well. The story is darkly brilliant, and every panel is a joy to lose yourself in. Now, next up, we take a look at a recently released trade collection of an image title, Nowhere Men, written by Eric Stevenson with art by Nate Bellegarde.
I'll admit that after reading the first issue, I did decide to sit back and wait for the trade. It's a very intriguing story, but can also be a little dense and a little confusing. Don't get me wrong, I actually think that's part of its charm, but I did want to wait till I had that whole picture before I started this.
Yeah, look, I can see what you're saying. There's a real effort put into world building for this story, and it can take a while to immerse yourself in it. We're introduced at the start to four men who have turned science into the new rock and roll. Dade Ellis, Simon Grimshaw, Emerson Strange, and Thomas Walker.
And then we begin hopping backwards and forwards in time, seeing the world change and warp as the smartest men in it begin to turn on one another. As ethics fall away, mutant gorillas and human testing on an orbiting space station takes centre stage.
Now, I'm a big fan of the super science focus in this story, but I do think the development of superpowers in the crew of the space station just didn't match the originality that I was seeing in the rest of the story.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, that is something that we've seen before. And the characters are all really believable, and the story's given some really nice context with those magazine articles and interviews throughout. Plus, the art style, really effective. So I'm still going to give this one a buy.
Yeah, fair enough. I think maybe I was just expecting too much based on that first issue. It's still a really well put together story and well worthy of a buy.
Absolutely. Now, it wouldn't be a collected edition roundup if we didn't take a look at least one event series. In this case, the event is Marvel's Infinity, Jonathan Hickman's sprawling space epic.
Well, it was billed as an event, but it's really more of a continuation of Hickman's work on Avengers and New Avengers, and it's the furthest thing from a jumping off point.
True, but as long as you know the backstory, Infinity is a fast-paced and very ambitious piece of storytelling. The plot revolves around Thanos, the mad titan, invading Earth, but at the same time, the Illuminati jump around the multiverse, finding out how far they're willing to go to avoid the end of the world.
Meanwhile, the Atlanteans wage a bloody war against the nation of Wakanda, and the Avengers wage their own war in space. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's maybe, for myself, a little too sketchy and rushed in some places plot-wise, but the art is extremely solid.
Now I'm glad you brought that up, because I cannot fault the visuals in this. Across the titles that make up the Infinity event, we have Jerome Opeña, Dustin Weaver, Leniel Francis Yu, and Mike Diodato all doing fine work. But I think Jim Cheung has to take the prize with some majestic pencil work that brings those battle scenes really alive. Once I got over the intimidating scope of this story, I actually found myself massively engrossed, so I'm giving it a buy.
Well, look, while I'm always impressed by Hickman's dedication to telling big stories, this one did occasionally leave me feeling a bit on the outside looking in. And while there's no denying it's an impressive piece of work by all involved, it didn't quite hold me. So, call it a matter of personal taste, I'm going to give it a borrow.
Awesome. Finally, we have the trade paperback of a series that we actually first looked at about a year ago. I Love Trouble, written by Kel Simons with art by Mark A. Robinson. Now, cards on the table, I wanted to review pretty much every issue of this series because it's that awesome, so my rating is pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Well, let's keep them in completely fake suspense for a little while longer. Now, I Love Trouble is a gem of a book that manages to tread that line between hilarious and disturbing, focusing on a small-time con woman called Felicia who suddenly develops the ability to teleport and then falls in with organised crime, a shadowy corporation that turns her into an assassin, and an imaginary monkey. This series is a great example of tongue-in-cheek storycraft.
While Simons puts in the work creating credible and endearing characters, Robinson does fantastic work on art, with a style that's both bombastic and engaging. There are also numerous winks and in-jokes that will appeal to pop culture junkies.
My personal favourite was the doorways in the Mars Corporation offices, each of them bearing the name of a different, corrupt business, from Umbrella Corp to Tessia Ashpool. But you have to ask yourself, is this a superhero story? Is it a spy story? Is it a mob story?
The simple answer is yes.
Right.
This is one of the best comic series that unfortunately have been cancelled, and I'm giving it a buy. In case you hadn't already guessed that, I urge everyone to check this out.
Yeah, look, it is a real shame this didn't go further. I think Felicia definitely had a distance to go before she slept, but the trade collection is guaranteed fun, and it's a buy from me.
Why do so many good series get cancelled?
You know what, we should probably look at that in our next segment.
I'll stick around then.
You were going to go somewhere?
I'm hungry.
But we've got a show to do.
But I want a sandwich. Yes, with cheese.
I thought that meant bum face.
Hello, Ray.
Hey, Sonia.
Welcome
Hey, guys.
back.
Thank you very much.
What an amazing collectible to kick off the season with.
Yes, he's pretty special. What can I say?
Well, you can break it down for us.
All right, sure. This is the DC Comics Batman premium format figure by Sideshow Collectables. Towering just under 65 centimeters tall, the Caped Crusader stands atop a stone gargoyle looming over the insidious criminals of Gotham City. This impressive sculpt by Andy Buchholz, Matt Butler, Martin Canale, and the Gore Group also comes with a switch-out head, one with a long-eared cowl, and the other akin to Jim Lee's short-eared version. This exclusive edition also comes with a switch-out hand holding the Batarang.
And this is real fabric on the statue too, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
This looks great, and up close it adds a really nice texture and realism to the character.
Yeah, Tim Hansen did a great job designing this and the utility belt, which is also made of fabric. That said, the general feedback regarding the fabric under the left arm in particular has been negative. It doesn't tuck nicely under the arm to show more of a refined torso and bicep.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, but it's not a huge issue, is it? You can fix this.
Oh yeah, you can fix it. You just gotta rotate the fabric on the arm a little further under and tuck it into the joint area. And because the cape covers the costume, you're not gonna see any gathering behind the shoulder blade there.
Cool. Now, I love the base on this.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it had to be a gargoyle, didn't it? There's a lovely detailing, even in the smaller gargoyles around the sides. This must have been what Canale and the Gore Group were focusing on, yeah?
Well, yeah, I reckon so, because they love their horror sculpts. Yeah. I'm glad that Bernardo Esquivel chose more of a sandstone look for the gargoyle, because if it was a grey, it might have been a bit too washed out, and it complements the utility belt as well. Now, onto the paintwork, I think it's excellent. And I love the shine that they've given to the black on his boots, the gloves, cowl and cape. It has a leathery look, but what it also does, it gives it weight.
The cape is beautifully crafted, and it's a good length too, it's not too long.
There's a great balance to the piece and realism too, but on balance, I just want to show everyone something. If I tip him a little bit this way, yeah, it becomes a little unsettling, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's not good at all.
Yes, because the statue is so heavily sculpted over into one direction. And so, yeah, he can stand there unsupported. However, for peace of mind, I'm going to go to a hobby or hardware store and get some of those self-adhesive pads and just layer underneath the base, you know, just for peace of mind.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Look, I am really impressed by this statue. The switch-out heads are a really nice touch. Again, great paintwork and detail shaping on his mouth and jaw.
Except that mine came with a little nick in his chin. Look, part of me doesn't actually mind that because at a distance it can look like a little scar, which is nice, but I did want a flawless item.
That's a real shame.
It is.
It is, yeah. Look, I'm gonna give this a buy though. This is probably the most impressive Batman statue I've ever seen. And you don't have to get the exclusive edition to get the switch out heads, yeah?
No, that's right. That's a great little addition. And smart marketing by Sideshow because everyone has their favorite Batman. And it's only the exclusive edition that comes with the switch out Batarang. But that's not a big deal because if you're a fan of the short-eared cowl with the turned head, then there's no problem because you can't actually see the Batarang anyway from that position. I do have another small issue, and that is the right thigh can dominate the image when looking straight on. And it's kind of highlighted further by the twisting torso, which in my opinion is perhaps twisted 3 or 4 degrees too far.
I don't really see that as much of a problem though, because I would assume most people would display him favouring the left side, yeah?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the stronger side of him. Look, I'm going to give it a buy as well, obviously, but it's not without pointing out some minor flaws in the sculpt. But if I add them all up, it's not going to detract from how impressive this figure is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thanks very much, Batman, for helping us out, but you're going back in the box.
Aw, why does he have to go back in the box?
I got no room for him at home to put him anywhere.
Oh,
so.
hey, well, if you got no room, you know, I could probably, you know, find somewhere to put
Get
it.
out!
No touching. No touching.
He's always doing that.
Yeah, he's always doing that.
No touching. And joining us today on Kapow, we have comic mastermind behind Pandeia, Paul Kajedi. Thanks for joining us again, Paul.
It's good to be here again, Al.
Excellent. Now, what have you been up to recently?
You know, the usual fatherhood, saving the world from imminent danger and all that
It's a
sort of
wonder
stuff.
we didn't run into each other.
Oh, where were you?
I was on the other side, probably. Anyway, what have you been doing in the comic realm?
I've been finishing up the first run of the first set of stories of Pandeia. Finished issue 5 recently, which is now available off the website and all that sort of stuff. But I thought it was high time to collect the first 5 chapters into a trade paperback. So
Excellent.
That's what I've been working on.
Great, great. Okay, and apart from that, you've been moving into Kickstarter as well.
Yes, in order to fund the first print run of this trade paperback, I decided to jump onto the Kickstarter platform and try my hand at it.
Yeah. And how's that been working out? Has it been paying off, jumping into that?
Yes, it's been surprisingly positive.
Excellent.
I think I did all my homework, you know, so pretty much from day one the pledges were coming in, 48 hours rolled by, 30% got pledged.
Nice.
I was really stoked.
Yeah, that's a really good start. Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of, what are the rewards and things that you're kicking out to getting people in?
Oh, well, obviously, people can get the book if they pledge the Kickstarter campaign. You get the print version or an ebook version, depending on the level at which you want to pledge. There's like a 3D downloadable model. There's a tutorial for making comics. There's posters, commissions, that sort of stuff.
Nice. Now, obviously, Kickstarter is relatively new to Australia. What have you learned from doing it? Anything you'd do differently if you could do it over?
Oh, just more homework, really.
Yeah.
It's something that you really have to think about. You have to figure out how much you need, how you're going to get it, where you're going to get the word out to.
Yeah.
It's a real exercise in marketing. Maybe I just go back and do an MBA first.
That's a fair bit of homework there,
Yeah.
Okay, and where have you been finding, what's been the most effective areas for bringing in the pledges?
It's surprisingly been social media. Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus. As soon as you tell people that you are friends with, share it. They do. And I'm finding a surprising amount of pledges coming from people that I know and have been following the work for a while. Nice. And so that's always encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, most important thing, where are people going to be able to find the Kickstarter campaign?
Of course. Well, you can go to my official website, pandeia.com. You can find me on Facebook. That's facebook.com/PandeiaComic. You can follow me on Twitter at Pandeia Comic. And of course, you can just go to the Kickstarter.com website and search comics in Australia, and I'm bound to be one of the first few that are up there.
Excellent. Okay, so look, everybody should check this out. Support some local content. It's a fantastic title. And look, thank you once again for coming to talk to us, Paul.
It's always a pleasure, Al.
So Ray, you're a big Cowboy Bebop fan.
Yes.
How did you feel going into Space Dandy?
I was skeptical because it's another space adventure about another bounty hunter of sorts.
Yes.
Directed by Shinichiro Watanabe and produced by Bones, Space Dandy is about a dandy in space. Of course. This dreamy adventurer with an Elvis-like pompadour travels around the galaxy in search of aliens no one has ever laid eyes on. And each of these new species he discovers earns him cash. Thing is, he's not the most competent, and he isn't the best shot.
It's seriously episodic in nature, isn't it?
Yes.
One story informs on another, but doesn't necessarily flow into the next.
That's right, yeah.
It's very jarring, but it's also really intriguing.
Oh yeah, we're being kept on our toes, that's
Yeah.
for sure. It had a very mixed response. Think Cowboy Bebop meets Arakawa Under the Bridge, so it can get pretty crazy at times. And I feel like each episode is almost geared towards a different kind of audience, because you'll have something that's quite character driven, and then you're slapped in the face with absurdity, and then the next episode really draws you in with something beautiful, like episode 5, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about the characters, Ray?
I love them, and our hero, Dandy, well, he's such a loser in so many ways. His penchant for boobies, which also happens to be a Hooters-like restaurant franchise spread throughout the galaxy, sometimes borders on crude. But Watanabe walks the line very carefully. You can see the craftsman at work, and Dandy is so unashamedly narcissistic and charismatic that it's rewarding to see him fail, which is in turn why I think we love him.
Totally. And this is balanced by two sidekicks. QT, an out-of-date robot, who, believe it or not, is the brains of the outfit. She's sweet, though her incompetence makes for some sticky situations. And my favourite, Meow, a cat-looking space alien who comes on board as some sort of freeloader. That's not his real name, though.
No.
Neither Dandy nor QT can actually pronounce it, so they've just labelled him Meow.
Yeah. I don't think the antagonists are much chop, though. It feels as though they'd be much more interesting if they posed a real threat to our heroes. Instead, they're kind of thwarted by circumstances or perceived circumstances instead of the action itself. And so I'm yet to be grabbed by, that story arc.
Yeah, design-wise, though, it's very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dr. Gel, for instance, who resembles a gorilla in a pirate outfit.
Right on. Design-wise, the characters look excellent. There's an endless array of aliens and the different worlds. They all reflect a deep imagination at work.
And the colours, every frame is filled with a vibrancy that I don't think I've seen before. Mixing a bold palette with a kind of electricity. Everything pops in an explosion of colour like fireworks.
Yeah, it's beautiful to watch and fluid. The animation is superb. There's not a lot of static frames, and when the action starts, hold on to your hats because it's up there with the best, visually and choreographically.
And Yoko Kanno delights us yet again with another dynamic, toe-tapping, spirited soundtrack.
Yes.
Whenever I think of her work, I just think, style.
That's a great description, yeah. Yeah, I love her work.
Yeah.
And in Space Dandy, it's beautiful. It's such a pleasure to listen to.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the series as a whole, though?
Well, at this stage with only half the season released, it's kind of difficult to see where it's kind of going.
Yeah.
It's a comedy, more or less, and it's a little bit hit and miss, I have to say. When the characters break the fourth wall, I really enjoy that, but again, that's a little bit, it doesn't always work.
No, it doesn't.
I want some of those larger story arcs to be strengthened a bit more, to give it a little bit more oomph.
Yep.
I am still going to keep watching it though.
Okay.
I am enjoying it, but I don't think it's going to appeal to absolutely everyone. So I think on the basis of that, I'm going to give it a borrow.
Okay, yeah, look, I was bouncing between a borrow and a buy. It's definitely a mix of genres. Watanabe's kind of the Quentin Tarantino of the anime kingdom.
Yeah.
He loves to mix genre and style in a kind of potpourri of visual and oral delight. Think Samurai Champloo, for example, where he mixes Edo Japan with hip-hop and street culture. So come with it, come to it with an open mind.
Absolutely.
And don't have too many expectations, because there's a lot of freedom in this world. There are no rules, and that kind of creates something that's buoyant and joyous. And I guess that's what I'm enjoying most about it. I'm having a lot of fun, and for that reason, I'm going to give it a buy as well.
And, you're a bit of a space dandy yourself, aren't you, Ray?
Excuse me. Hey!
Looking at I Love Trouble in our first segment got us thinking about cancellations, about those comics that, rightly or wrongly, have dropped off the shelves. And no matter how justified the cancellation, there will always be die-hard fans who are just gutted that their favourite series has bitten the dust.
Sometimes it seems like the only possible choice due to poor sales or lack of interest, but sometimes it's really inexplicable. As in the case of Superman Unchained. I never thought I'd see the day when a Scott Snyder series would be edged out after only 9 issues.
Well, the first arc was only ever going to be 9, but yeah, I am surprised that it wasn't held over as a series. But mind you, DC do seem to have been cleaning house lately, with Nightwing, Suicide Squad, JLA, and Teen Titans all showing up on the casualty list.
For me, though, the most painful loss in the DC stable has to be Dial H, written by China Mayville, with Albert Ponticelli, David Lapham, and Matthias Santaluccio all passing through as artists. It has to be said, though, although I was really sad to see Dial H get the axe, I wasn't that surprised.
Yeah, look, sales were never that spectacular, and I also think that one of its greatest strengths was also one of its greatest weaknesses.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a New 52 title, but it never really hooked into the larger DC universe. I mean, it had its own vast, multiverse-spanning story to tell, and it just didn't play well with others.
That's true, and I don't think the lead characters really helped. You have Nelson Gent, an overweight slacker who discovers a phone dial that transforms him into random and often hilariously named superheroes. You also have his partner Roxy, who is awesome, but is also middle-aged and ticks none of the usual boxes for comic heroines. Again, I think that's one of the reasons why this series was so great, but it could also be the reason it didn't quite hook into that market. Oh well. C'est la vie.
Yes, now, sticking with DC for just a little longer, we come to a series that wasn't cancelled but has been on an extended hiatus. Batman: The Widening Gaia, written by Kevin Smith with art by Walter Flanagan. Now, not to put it too bluntly, but this is one of the worst Batman stories I've ever read, and I hope it's gone forever.
I really hope I'm not around when you decide to be blunt.
Yeah, I know, but honestly, this book got thrown across the room more than once before I finished reading it.
Alright, well, let's set the scene a little before you start tearing it apart. Widening Gaia follows on from the Cacophony miniseries, which was a New York Times bestseller and revolved around the Smith-created villain Onomatopoeia. Widening Gaia focuses on 2 characters showing up in Gotham: Bruce's ex-girlfriend, Silver St. Cloud, and a brand new crime fighter calling himself Baphomet.
See, I quite liked Cacophony, so I was honestly surprised to see what a poorly plotted mess Widening Gaia turned out to be, just cobbled together out of disconnected action scenes and puerile humour.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. Nothing about this book worked, and its approach to some of the characters was painful. Catwoman is reduced to a clingy stalker, and the Dark Knight himself comes across as more or less an idiot, taking Baphomet into his full trust after only a couple of weeks and one hug in the rain.
Now, since it's set in pre-New 52 continuity, there's no real deadline for when this story can come out.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come out by the end of last year.
Yeah.
I'm praying it never, ever does.
Okay, moving swiftly in a more positive direction, we come to Battle Chasers, a critically acclaimed series created by Joe Madureira that began under the Wildstorm imprint in 1998. Battle Chasers ran for 9 issues over 4 years and ended on quite a cliffhanger, which has never been resolved, mainly due to the fact that its creator left the world of comics for the world of gaming.
Yes, making them,
Yes.
not just playing them.
Yeah.
He's not just sitting on his couch.
No.
Now, Battle Chasers was a great series that I know a lot of people would be really happy to see return. Set in a world where magic and science coexist, it follows Gully, a 9-year-old girl who wields a pair of magic gloves belonging to her missing father, as she goes on a quest to stop 4 powerful bad guys that have escaped from prison. If it returns, it may well be under a different creative team, but one can always hope.
Finally, we come to one of the more recent Image titles to have gone AWOL. Where is Jake Ellis? Written by Nathan Edmondson with art by Tonchi Zonic. Now, you may remember that we took a look at the previous 5-part series, Who is Jake Ellis? And we're big fans.
Absolutely, just a breakneck spy thriller with a sci-fi twist that had me hooked from its very first perplexing pages. John Moore is a former CIA analyst on the run from a lot of very dangerous people, and assisted only by one man named Jake Ellis that no one else can see. Once John has figured out who Jake Ellis is in the first series, well, more or less, he has to figure out where he is in the second one.
Now, unfortunately, only the first 3 issues of this series have been released, with the last one being released in March last year. This was concerning, so much so that we reached out to the writer Nathan Edmondson just to see what was going on.
Now, Mr. Edmondson has assured us Jake Ellis will return as soon as possible. He was also kind enough to send us this preview page from the next issue. Feast them eyes.
And the Jake Ellis title has also been picked up by Fox for adaptation into film, with David Yates to direct. So that is crazily exciting too.
Absolutely it is. I guess the lesson here is never jump to conclusions. Even if your favourite series has been off the shelves for more than a year, it might just be sleeping.
Well guys, we've come to the end of our very first episode for the year, and I think it was worth the wait.
Absolutely, and luckily you won't have to wait that long again, with our next episode coming up in just 3 weeks, just as packed to the brim with comics, collectibles, and all the other things that make life worthwhile.
Absolutely. Now, we always love hearing from our Kapowians, so if there's a comic you want us to take a look at or a character you'd like a segment on, let us know on Twitter or Facebook.
Or on the YouTube comments, or even smoke signals if the mood takes you.
You can read smoke signals?
No, Ray can. Now, you remember last week he saw that smoke and he knew that guy needed help.
No, that guy's house was on fire.
Yeah, that's why he needed help.
No, look, we'll discuss this later. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye.
You know, 'cause the smoke, it was shaped like broccoli.
It was smoke-shaped, man. There were flames. Burning flames.
I don't understand.